Yo, what's good, YouTube? It's your boy Bam, back with another video. In today's video, we're going to be going over FL Studio, the software, how to use it to start making beats and record as a beginner or someone who's just never used the software in general. Please bear with me. I have a bird, so if you hear in the background, just don't really pay attention to that. Also, I'm not going to be speaking directly into my mic the entire guide how I am now, because I'll be facing my laptop screen, which is a little bit away from my mic, so just bear with me on that, y'all. But other than that, let's just dig straight into it. So here is your playlist. When you first open FL Studio, this is what you'll see, your playlist. As you can see right here, it says playlist, which is the arrangement, as you can see right next to the playlist, of your project or your beat, let's say. Really, it's called a project, or that's what FL will call it. That's what any software will really call it, as a project. But over here is your tools. So we have the draw tool, which the shortcut for that is P. So press P on your keyboard and you'll get the draw tool. This allows you to place clips and patterns and move them around. Next, we have the paint tool, which is B, which it does the same thing, but it allows you to add multiple at once, like this. Next, we have the delete tool, which is D on your keyboard. That was a crazy voice crack, but D on your keyboard. And now you can delete. You can also delete with any of these tools by just left clicking on something and deleting it like that, which is another way that you could delete things. Next, we have the mute tool, which is T. This just lets you mute clips or patterns. Slip. What slip does is it changes the actual location and time of where your audio clip or pattern is, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it, but it basically changes the actual time of where that clip is located in the playlist. Next is slice. This is your cutter, which you press down on the left click of your mouse and you'll get the blue cut, and then if you right click on your mouse, you'll get the red cut. So I'll show you the difference between these two versions of the slice in a second. Next is your select tool, which you can get by pressing E. Oh yeah, also for your slice tool, that's C. So you can press C for your slice tool. For select, press E, and this just allows you to select a clip or pattern. Next we have zoom, Z. The zoom tool just lets you zoom in or out. Next we have playback, which is Y. It's not gonna work right now, but basically if I had an audio clip and I was hovering over the audio clip with this and I pressed this, it would just play the audio clip. And then here you can just pause your song or play your song. Right here is your grid. This is where you can change your actual grid on the playlist. I'm just gonna leave it as so how I had it before. Okay, next we have your pickers. So you have your pattern picker, audio picker, and your automation picker. So automation clips, we're not going to worry about that right now. That's something that we'll get into a little bit later down the line, but for now just worry about these two right here, which is your patterns and your audio clips. So right here is your pattern, and your pattern is what you're going to use to make your beats. Your audio clips is what you're going to use probably if you were to sample something or use a loop or something like that. But if you wanted to start everything from scratch, you'd really just be using patterns. So we have our pattern, and then we can either use the draw or paint tool to place our pattern. So now we have our pattern. I'm just going to put it on track 1. Now we have our pattern, we're going to go into something called the channel rack. The channel rack is where you can add sounds into your pattern. So in order to see your channel rack, press F6 on your keyboard. Now if I press F6, it's going to bring up your channel rack. So if we look at our channel rack, here we'll show different displays. I always just keep it on all personally because it just shows you everything in the rack, head to toe. This just plays and pauses your pattern. So if you want to play your pattern or not play it, you can also just control that with here by pressing space. Here is your swing knob. This basically shifts or gives a little bit of shift off the grid of your sounds within the actual piano roll, which you'll see when I start adding sounds. And when I'll use the swing so you can hear the difference. This changes your pattern length. I don't ever touch this, to be honest. This is your graph editor. This allows you to change your note pitch, velocities, release velocity, fine pitch, panning, and I don't know what this is, to keep it a buck with y'all. I'm assuming this is modulation, but I'm not too sure. But yeah. So if we want to get a sound, we'd go to our browser. Where's our browser? This is our browser right here. Our browser is going to hold preset information, project information, plugin information. Plugins are your effects, which we'll get into that in a second. And it'll also hold all your audio sounds and clips internally in the actual software. Not in the project, but in the software itself. So if you want to add sounds into your softwares, you can go into your options and go into file settings, or you can press F10 and then just press file, and you'll go to the file settings, and then you just click on this folder and you just choose the actual folder of your drum kit. Or if you have one big folder with a whole bunch of different drum kits in that one big folder, which is what I do, then you could also just set it up like that. So if I go here to my drum kits, I have all my different drum kits for my different genres. So let's just go into plugin B, for example, and let's choose this kit right here, and let's just get a hi-hat. Another thing is, if you don't want to use the mouse in your browser, you can use the arrow keys. So I can go up and down with the arrow keys on the browser. If I want to open a folder on the browser using my keyboard, I could just press enter again to close it. And if I'm over this sound and I want to replay this sound, for example, I just press the right arrow key. And if I want to get out of this, left arrow key. And it just closes it. So I'm just gonna go back into here and let's get this Polo Boy hi-hat. So I'm gonna press F6, Polo Boy hi-hat, and I'm gonna hold it with my mouse by left clicking, and I'm just gonna drag it in to here. Now I have the sound. Now here I could place my actual notes and for the pattern. Now you can hear it now. Now, if I want to go into my piano roll, which is what I personally prefer when making patterns, I can right click on this piano roll and then just go into my piano roll. And if I want to change the different velocities, pans through the piano roll, I can just hit control and change it here. Now keep in mind, velocity is not volume. Velocity is how hard the note is being played, how soft or hard the note is being played, not volume. So if you think increasing the velocity on your sound is going to increase the volume, it's not. You're just increasing how hard the sound is being played. So just keep that in mind when dealing with your velocities. Pan changes how much of the sound goes from left to right. Now in your beat or your mix, we can call it, there's a stereo field and a mono field. You're going to be dealing with the stereo field because your master track, which is your track that's going to take all your sounds and allow them to be played out of your speakers, is going to be stereo, which means it's going to have a left channel and a right channel. So your left channel would be the volume of that sound in your left ear, and the right channel would be the volume of that sound in your right ear. So let's say I wanted to move it up and make these sounds go to the right. I could do that by just playing with here, and then I'll bring some of these down to the left. You probably need headphones to hear that, or a pair of 2 speakers, but you can hear starts in the right ear and then goes to the left as it gets to this hi-hat. So if I wanted to delete this, for example, just right click and delete. Another way I can go into my piano roll also is by pressing F7. So that's just another shortcut that you can use to go into your piano roll. Now if I want to select something, I'd go over this bar and then I'd hold the right click on my mouse and I'd be able to highlight and select over these. Or again, I could just use my select tool to select each note. Now if I wanted to select different notes individually, I could hold shift and then hold multiple notes like this. Or select them, sorry. Instead of just selecting one like this, I could hold shift, select them all. Just like that. So that's pretty cool. Here is your channel volume. This is where you're going to really be doing the mixing, is through the channel rack with your channel panning and your channel volume. This is how you're going to get your beats to sound good, is by mixing them and making sure each sound in your beat has its own pocket or its own space within the actual mix and or beat itself. So I'm just going to delete this real quick, and I'm just going to make a quick pattern. So I'm just going to take this normal clap, I'm going to add it here, here. Now I have 2 claps. Now let's say I want to add some hi-hats. I'll just add this polo one back, I guess. And if I want, I could put them in like this. Or what I can do, I'm just going to delete all of these. And if you want to know how I deleted it by that, just hover over it and then hold right click on your mouse. If I want, I can hover over this, right click, and you can choose how many steps you want to fill. You can fill each 2-step, each 4-step, each 8-step, or you can do advanced. We're not going to get into advanced right now, but you probably want to use advanced if you were an actual drummer, I guess, for example. But I'm just going to fill each 2 steps. So that's just another quick way that you could get your hi-hats, I guess, with that kind of like trap bounce. And now I'm just going to add a kick. So, boom. Now let's say in this beat, I want to add another kick. There you go. Now that I have this, I'm going to play with the swing knob so I can show you guys what the swing does. So I'm just going to I'm gonna turn it all the way up to 100. But first, before I do that, just listen to how it sounds without swing. Now I'm just gonna turn the swing all the way to 100, and now listen. It just makes it a little bit more bouncier, and things of that sort. So if I want to change the velocities here, for example, which I just did by hitting this graph editor, or you can type in Control K on your keyboard. I'm not typing. You could hit Control K on your keyboard, or I could go into the piano roll and draw my velocity this way. Just keep in mind, what you're doing with these are MIDI notes, and MIDI is just data. So even though this is a sound that's being played, it's just data at the end of the day. It's not an actual clip of audio. It's just MIDI data. So keep that in mind, that these notes aren't actual audio clips in FL, even though they're coming as an audio clip from your browser. So let's say now I wanted to add a melody, right? I could click on here, and now I have my plugins. Now with my plugins, I could create more sounds or use these plugins to obtain sounds. So let's say I go into Purity, boom, hit preset, and I'm just gonna choose a random sound. Now I'm gonna go into here, that sounds terrible, but you get the gist. So next thing that we need to go over is obviously mixing your actual beat. So there's many different ways and techniques. To be honest with y'all, you have to find your own way, your own technique, or use other people's techniques and learn from those. But mixing is also a creative process. Don't find it as just technical, because it's also creative. So still think of it in a creative way. So I'm just gonna mix this real quick. So I'm just gonna start with the kick, and I'm gonna base the entire thing off the kick. So I'm just gonna make the kick louder. I'm gonna put the hi-hats down. And now I'm just gonna turn the clap down a little bit. And now you can hear everything kind of has its own pocket and its own space to shine in. Now if I want, I can also change the pan. I'm just going to leave the kick in the center. When dealing with things that have low frequencies, you usually just want to keep them in the center. There will be times where they could be left or right, but it all depends. So now that I have these sounds, I'm going to want to bring them into my mixer so that I can add effects to these sounds. So how do I get to my mixer? Well, I can get to my mixer by pressing F9. Now that I press F9, I'm in my mixer. Here is my master channel. Your master channel is where every single signal in your mixer is going to go into. And your master is what's going to feed all those signals out into your speakers so that it can actually be heard when played back. The mixer is also where all your effects and your routing will be. So we're not going to get too deep into routing and signal flow right now, but just understand that that will be something important later down on your music career. So I want to get these sounds to my mixer. How do I do that? Well, there's a couple different ways that you could send these sounds to your mixer. So let's start with the kick. And I want to move this kick up here to where the clap position is. So I'm going to hold Alt on my keyboard and just move it up by pressing the up arrow while holding Alt. That's just so my kick is there. So now there's a couple different ways I could route it into a mixer channel. So the first way is by clicking on the kick, by right clicking, or whatever sound you have, your audio source I should say, because it could be any sound, not just a kick. But left click on it and then one like that, and there you go. Now it's in the mixer. Now you can see it's in there. Another way I can do it is literally just by right here. Just click and put it in. And you can change which mixer you want to send it to. As you can see, as I change it, it's moving which one is in. Next way is I could click on it again and be brought into this, and I can hit track. Now if I hit this and I press track, which I'll show you in a second, it's gonna route it into the next empty track. So whichever is the next empty channel track in your mixer is where it's gonna be sent to. And it will also have the name. So if I hit track, boom, now it has the name. And if I want to change the color of it, I can just hover over this channel, make sure it's selected, and I can press F2. Now I can either just press F2 again to get a random color, or I can actually click on it and I could just choose a color. So I'll just choose this color, and then you could either hit this or you could just press enter. So other way that you could route it is you click on your sound, making sure this box is selected, or you could select multiple sounds. So let's select both these sounds. So if you want to select two at once, just press shift while selecting them, and there you go. Next, I'm just gonna hit Control L at the same time on my keyboard. And now that I've hit Control L at the same time on my keyboard, it's been routed and it has the name, as you can see right here and right here. I can also change the color of these, which I will do right now. Now if I play it, you can see signal. Now here is your effects. Each different channel has 10 different effect slots, which means you're able to put 10 different effects on each sound. So here are where all your effects are. You may not have this many effects when you first have FL, because there's something called third-party plugins or third-party effects, which are effects made by companies outside of Fruity Loops or ImageLine, which are the actual creators of FL Studio, which are not like stock effects that come with the software, but actual effects that you could purchase and use, which most professional producers are going to be using a mix of both stock plugins and third party. But for now, we're just going to stick to stock plugins. So here is a Fruity Parametric EQ2. We also have Fruity parametric EQ, which is the first one, and we have another EQ here. These are the effects that you're really going to want to start off with, is your EQ and your compressor. You have a compressor here, and you can use this compressor. You have a compressor in this limiter plugin by pressing comp, and now here's another compressor that you could use. And now you have 3 different EQs that FL Studio comes with as well. I have this EQ, you have EQ parametric, second one. This is my favorite one. And then you have this EQ right here. So what are these effects? First, let's go over EQ. EQ is basically a controller for your frequencies, and it allows you to change the volumes of your frequencies, or I'm sorry, how do I, it changes the volume of certain frequency ranges dependent on the bands that you're using of the actual EQ. As for a compressor is something that controls the loudest and quietest parts of your sound and makes it more even by squishing it together or compressing it, as the name, compressor. So let's just use some of these effects so you could kind of hear what it's doing. So we're gonna go into the EQ2, and I'm just gonna take this 4th band and I'm just gonna bring it up. Now you probably hear the difference, but as you can see, 641 hertz is at a 14 decibel boost, which means this frequency, and as you can see this curve going down, this entire range is being boosted in the actual frequency spectrum. This is a mid frequency. As you can see, there's different frequency ranges within your frequencies, which are your lows, mids, and highs. You could also cut it into a little bit more divided by sub bass or sub frequencies, low frequencies, low mid frequencies, high mid frequencies, and then high frequencies or treble, as it says here. It also shows you on the top like the different octave ranges, which is pretty cool. Everything down here we're not going to go over it today, but I'll definitely save some more complicated stuff, but for now we're just going to keep it simple. Over here is your controller of the actual EQ. So if you don't want to control the EQ settings here, you could just control them here. These knobs right here, if I just go right here, allows me to change the frequency of the band, and the width is what this one is doing. It's changing the width. This is called your Q. I'm just going to use this as a better example. So you see, the more I can make it wider, or I can make it more narrow. So let's just reset this and let's boost this, and then let's just sweep it across. So that's your EQ. Next is the compressor. We're just gonna use the Fruity compressor. And how about, actually no, let's use the Fruity compressor for the hi-hats. So pay attention to the hi-hats. as you can hear with the actual compression, it's not lowering the volume of the actual sound itself, like the entire sound itself, I should say, but it's lowering the peaks of the sound. And then the attack, which would control how fast the compressor is catching that peak, and the release, which determines how the compressor lets go of that transient or that peak in your sound. As for the type, this just changes the type of compressor and how it would work, or the type of tone or sound it will give, I guess. There's many different compressors with different settings. You know, the threshold is how much of the peaks are being squished, and the ratio is the range, is the decibel range of that. So I'm just gonna bring this down. And now bring your gain up so that you get the volume of the actual sound back. It's a little bit louder, it sounds. But yeah, that's your compressor. Also have the EQ down here. Here you can change the frequency. Here you can boost or cut. And with this knob you can actually change the frequency of each band. And then this is just the width again, or the Q. Yeah, man. But I think we're just gonna leave it at that for now. Actually, no, we'll go over a few more things real quick. Up here, so if you press this, you'll get your metronome. I use my metronome in every single beat I produce. I use the metronome so I could get some rhythm, you know, a better feel of the actual beat. Your metronome is basically just your clicker, or literally the metronome itself is just a clicking sound that's every beat in your actual beats per minute, or your BPM of the project or beat. So right here is your tempo. You can change it. I'm pretty sure FL Studio goes from like 10 to 500, I believe. 10, you can go from 10 beats per minute all the way to 522 beats per minute. So you have a very big range that you could produce in. But to be honest, most music now is really just produced from 65 BPM all the way to 220 BPM. I've seen beats at. So that's the range that most beats are made in now. Honestly, I wouldn't really try making beats at 200 BPM right off the jump. I'd start with between 120 to 140, because that's more of the generic tempo that every software usually starts out at 120 or 140. So, but yeah, this is your metronome. You just click this, or you can hit Control M. This control turns your keyboard into an actual like piano player, or note player, I guess you could say. Really it's a MIDI controller is what it turns your keyboard into, makes it act as a MIDI controller. If I press this and now I went back here, you see now I'm playing my sound. If I go in here, press Q on my keyboard, it's playing this note. If I press W, it's playing D. If I press E, forth, so on. Which is pretty cool. The rest of these settings we're not going to go over right now. Those are also more for recording, so yeah, that's really all I have for today's video. Let me know what y'all want next, man. I'm definitely gonna be doing more tutorials and everything, so stay tuned for that. And I'm definitely gonna go into more mixing techniques, patterns that producers are using, different ways on how you can improve your beats and learn FL Studio. So just stay tuned, man, and we're gonna be coming with more content soon. Just trust me, I'm gonna be pushing out more videos, you feel me? So just stay in tune for that. And if y'all want to see cook-up videos or videos of me making beats just for fun and posting them, I got y'all, man. Just let me know. But other than that, that's really all I got for y'all today. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll respond as fast as I can. And yeah, that's really it. Peace, y'all. Have a good day. I appreciate everybody that watched to the end.